All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I have a couple of headlines here. As you can see in the title, they are making moves. Okay, and they are making moves is referring to um, pretty much everybody. Okay, but ultimately, it's Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Putting the influence and the thoughts into the minds of these different rulers. On the one hand, the elites that are pulling strings behind the scenes through their agents and through their money. And also, on the other hand, the minds of these different nations, okay, and their rulers and their people as well. So decisions and moves are being made on a world scale, ones that are going to lead to war. Okay, they're definitely going to lead to war because now what you can see is the direction of power is starting to be shifted, okay, toward the east with Russia, China, the formation of BRICS. And now the dollar and parts of Europe are now looking not too appetizing. And as it goes on more and more, and the de-dollarization becomes, so apparent that the average individual damn near knows what it is. The U.S. is not going to sit there, and just, oh yeah, twiddle their thumbs and so on and so forth. Okay, this is ultimately going to lead to war. However, do have a few different ones here, so I'm not going to read through every single part of the article. I've linked it in the description box in the order that we're going to go through it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and so you can access it there. But the first one says it's a defund the global police movement. Jen says de-dollarization is happening at a stunning pace. And this is a term that I heard used years ago, but it wasn't widely, mentioned like it is now. Okay, this was something that was being warned about. It was being mentioned as I know they mentioned Russia, which was slowly shifting away from the dollar, but now it's to the point where it's picked up like a trend, and not just Russia's doing it, but a lot of countries are doing it too. I was reading an article earlier today talking about, I think it was India and uh what was the name of the other country? I forgot the exact one. I don't know if it was Pakistan or some other country, but they basically said that they're gonna start trading outside of the dollar, and not for everything, but for a good portion of things. And that's what is that? That's a slow transition. Or sorry, not a slow transition. I'll just call it a step by step transition because it's moving fast. So let's read a little bit of this. It says, over the last few weeks, it has seemed that you can't turn a page, blink at a pixel, or hear a news report without some form of de-dollarization headline shrieking at you. From Brazil to Saudi Arabia, and from India to Argentina, and increasing number of nations are reportedly shifting away from the dollar hegemon. So what does that mean for this place? Through, okay, through, and the consumers are going to get it even worse because a lot of people don't understand what what are the actual impacts of something like this. This is on a mass scale. Okay, this is on a world scale. And once these nations break free, well, boy oh boy. So a couple of headlines, right? Some recent headlines. No reason for Malaysia to rely on US dollar. PM warns as yuan influence grows. De-dollarization just got real. Here are 7 signs that global de-dollarization has just shifted into overdrive. De-dollarization has begun. So the clock was already ticking on this place, but now it's been sped up. So time is short. And there's a crash coming. Okay, best believe there's a crash. There's a very big crash that is coming. Might be sometime this year, maybe within the next few quarters, who knows? But there's definitely a crash coming. It says eyeballing the dollar index or some other broad index at flat relative at or of fiat relativity drops modest hints, but the nature of the relationship of one unbacked currency against another makes that comparison worthless in the long term. But below the surface, the dollar's fecal matter is striking rotating objects at an increasing pace. And Stephen Jen, infamous for his coining of the dollar smile while at Morgan Stanley, which posits that the US dollar tends to do well when the economy is soaring or slumping, recently quantified just how rapidly the de-dollarization is occurring. Okay, so they know what's going on, and pretty much the shit is hitting the fan. So it says Jen, who now runs money at Eurizon SLJ, warned in a recent briefing note that the dollar is losing its reserve status at a faster pace than generally accepted, as many analysts have failed to account for last year's frantic swings in exchange rates. And another thing that impacted this a lot was the sanctions. Okay, if you remember at the beginning, I think it was last year, the so-called war in Ukraine, the U.S. came out and said they were going to throw sanctions, and they try to coerce and influence other nations to join in on that. Those sanctions were a shot in the foot. They backfired. They didn't do what the U.S. thought they would do, and instead, since they used the dollar as a weapon, these other countries that were holding reserves, U.S. treasuries and all of these things, they started to say, "Oh, is that right? Is that what you're gonna do? Right? If you're gonna use the dollar as a weapon against Russia, then I don't feel safe holding on to dollars. Maybe I want to de-dollarize along with Russia, as they and China and all these other countries. Why do you think so many countries are opting to join BRICS? Why do they want to join so bad? Because they're seeing, the Titanic is sinking. The Titanic is sinking, and they're trying to jump ship quick. So the problem is the U.S. cannot jump ship because the U.S. is the ship, and it is sinking. All right, and that actually goes in line with Jeremiah 51:8. It says Babylon is suddenly fallen, and that's the key part. Suddenly. Now, for those that are aware and that have their eyes open, it's quick, but you're still aware. And I mean, there's going to be some decisive action that happens at some point that then completely spirals everything out of control, right? Like the first domino falling. But for those that are just walking around like everything is all good, peons, it's going to be very sudden, like it came out of nowhere. And not necessarily nowhere, but it was out of their range of view because they weren't looking. See? So it says Babylon is suddenly falling, which Babylon represents America. All right, Jeremiah 51:8, Babylon is talking about America. So America is going to suddenly fall and what? And destroyed. And it's going to start, ultimately, it's going to end with fire, right? There's going to be a physical, complete destruction of this land. However, it's going to start with the crumbling internally, the being cut off by these other nations, ruining international relationships and having chaos inland. Where, I mean, people just acted like it was all good. If you have been paying attention, there have been a lot of weird occurrences happening within the US that then just get swept under the rug like it's all good. They all these different food processing plants and factories that just got burnt, the thousands of cattle that have been dying, the chickens that have been getting euthanized because of the so-called bird flu or whatever it is, the natural disasters that have been destroying farmland. All of these things add up. incrementally, they all add up. And before you know it, as it says in Second Esdras, let's get that real quick, about the storehouses being empty. Right? I believe that's Second Esdras chapter 6, right around the 24th verse, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, maybe it was a little above that. So this is Second Esdras chapter 6, verse 22. It says, "And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty." And and really, it's because they have been systematically, they've laid siege to this place. And then I'm gonna come back to this, but in addition to that, as things are still happening, which there's a company called Monsanto's, which they have been doing this for years, right? But pretty much they've been trying to force farmers away from being able to use natural seeds, to just plant their crops regularly. You got Billy Hole Gates buying up all this farmland. Apparently, they're injecting animals with this potion, this Vanessa potion, and then putting that aside, because guess what? Food shortages they're still there. They're just not talked about as much as anything else. But then now you have the chemical warfare. They've been spraying chemtrails over you for years. Your water, and then now they're just going and about doing it openly, having all these train derailments. All of a sudden, train derailments, left, right, left, right, left, right. And these, they just, majority of them just happen to have toxic chemicals that either drop into a body of water, or they get burnt. What the hell do you think is going to happen if you if you burn this and the fumes go up into the air, into the atmosphere? Now, who knows? Because see, Esau is sinister, and when you read in uh Psalm 64, it tells you that their inward thought and their heart is deep. The inward thought and the heart of every one of them is deep. So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Esau to have, deliberately set up those train derailments, but that's kind of obvious. But what kind of chemicals were it that got released, right? Because they can come out and say, oh, it was this, it was that, and yada yada. But Esau could very well manufacture some very long-lasting, dangerous chemical, and the means of delivery is by airborne, and then they just have it be, just so apparently there was this train derailment and the chemicals got burnt, and then they got mixed up into the atmosphere, and then that's it, and then we just forgot about it. But maybe these are long-lasting chemicals that are designed, right, to be able to spread this way and do all. I mean, who knows? So this devil is really the devil. But the point is, they did that in not just Ohio, which they predicted that before it happened. They showed it in their movies and so on and so forth. So they did that there. Then so many, I think there was one in somewhere in Dakota, North Dakota, somewhere along those lines. Okay, and a few other places. So all of these things that they are doing is destroying the structure inward of America and collapsing it. Now, I mean, which not just now, but the grid, which is super weak. And I was watching a video, I believe it was the elder brother Amawang Gabar. He had posted it. I forgot what the name of the video was, but it went into the American grid and the blackout situation. And it was highlighting, I watched a bit of it, I didn't finish the whole thing, but it was highlighting the weakness of the grid and the what was it called? A transformer. I think that's what it was. It was called a transformer. So you have like raw electricity, and then the transformer converts it to different yeah, I forget the word exactly, but you can just call it, for lack of a better word, like different levels of output, because different machines require different amounts of this current or this electricity. That's why you'll see, like, when you read certain devices, they'll show like the voltage, like whatever 240 V or something like that. Right? I'm not an expert in electricity and stuff, but more or less that's what the transformers do. So they're very important, but they're also very huge, very heavy, very costly, and they're not, if I'm not mistaken, they're not manufactured here in the US. A lot of these things are bought overseas and brought, and a lot of them are also manufactured and brought from China, which the guy speaking in the video was saying, well, does anybody inspect these things to see, well, if it's coming from China, what if China one day says, all right, now we're at war, and by the way, all those transformers we sold you, we put something in there which can actually disable your shit. you know, who knows? But another point that was made was that these transformers, to either fix them or to replace them, you need to be able to move one from one location all the way to another location, which they got to shut down the road. They got to, I mean, they got to do a whole lot just to move it from point A to point B. So if there was a blackout, if the grid, stopped functioning, which a year or two ago, you saw a demo of that in Texas, where they had to boil water, electricity was out, it was cold as shit. I think it was in the wintertime too. All right. But the point is, if the grid goes down, it is going to be next to impossible to fix it. And everybody sits on it like it's cool. It's cool. People have raised concerns, but nothing is being done because it's systematically designed that way. So everything has, all different aspects of this place have been pushed to the brink of collapse. And now it's just waiting for that one event. And then everything is just going, and that's why the scriptures say it's going to be a time like never before, because it's going to be everything. One here. All the things that could go wrong will go wrong. So going back to 2 Ezra chapter 6 and 22, it says, and suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. And the sown is when you're a husbandman, right, or a planter. What do you sow? You sow seed into the ground. So the places where you sow are those farmlands and so on and so forth. And when you sow, once again, you break up the ground. In the ancient world, they had the plow and so on and so forth. Today they have more advanced machinery, but then they create these furrows, right? And then they plant the seeds in there and then water it and so on and so forth. So the sown places are going to appear unsown. And if they appear unsown, what does that mean? You're not getting any harvest. You're not getting any crops. It says the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty, meaning that the people are going to rush up into these places and they're gonna quickly consume all the things that are in there, and that's it. No more is coming back. Once they clear out these shops, that's it. Why? Because the average civilian forgets that the food doesn't respawn. You don't take bread off the shelf and then 5 seconds later it respawns on the shelf by itself. No, this is manufactured from grain all the way up into that loaf that you're looking at. And it goes through a chain. That's what they call a supply chain. It goes through a chain of processes before it gets to your market. So when that chain is broken and there's no more coming to your market, you're going to clear out that storehouse and there's going to be nothing left. And that's going to cause a lot of chaos, all right, a lot of panic and a lot of death, because it's not going to be enough food for people. See? So going back to Jeremiah 51 and 8, it says Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. How for her? So that destruction is gonna happen through the breakdown of this place, and then it's gonna keep on escalating. Even though at some point it's gonna look like they've gained some form of stability and they're putting things back in order, it's not gonna last. Because once they're able to quell the civil unrest in the land and declare some type of state of emergency and try to instill some type of order, then there's going to be chaos on an even higher level, which is going to involve nuclear missiles flying and so on and so forth. It says, "Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed." So that means that this place is wounded. Okay, and then that wound is it's an incurable wound. Verse 9, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go everyone into his own country. For her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. So just like going back to the Titanic analogy, if Babylon is the Titanic, and they just crash into that iceberg, according to the story in the movie, right? Which, when you really look into it, that was the Titanic was sunk on purpose. You had what's this guy? Was it J.P. Morgan, who was supposed to get on the Titanic, and then last minute he didn't. And then you had a lot of rich families that were on there. And what was it? I think the Astors were one of them, and they were opposing. This when did the Titanic sink? Because I think this was close to the time of the passing of the Federal Reserve. Let me see. When did the Titanic? Yep, 1912. So, if I remember correctly, there were certain rich families that were, sort of in the way of the plans of these other rich banking families, like the Rothschilds and Oppenheimers, and so on and so forth. And so, in order to eliminate this, these rich families were had to they had them on the ship, this Titanic, which was set up to sink. Okay, the whole it just it ran and hit the iceberg and shit. You watch the movie Jack and Rose and the iceberg hit and all that shit. No, it was designed that way, and I believe the few that survived, they made them sign some sort of gag order or something like that, where they couldn't disclose of any information they knew, because there were certain things that weren't adding up. Okay. And then lo and behold, what was it, 1 year or so after that, they passed the Federal Reserve bill and so on and so forth. Okay. So the point is, going back to what I was saying, which no, I just want to look up one more thing. Is it Jacob Astor? I believe it might be this individual. Yep. When did he die? He died April 15th, 1912. Let me see. When did the Titanic sink? April 14th, 1912. Interesting. So let's see what it says here. I don't even know if they're actually gonna put how he died in here, but maybe we might see something in here. Titanic. Interesting, huh? The Titanic sinks with 1,800 on board and only 675, mostly women and children, saved. While traveling, Madeline Force Astor became pregnant, wanting the child born in the U.S. The Astors boarded Titanic on her maiden voyage to New York. They embarked in Cherbourg, France, in first class and were the wealthiest passengers abroad. Accompanying the Astors were Astor's valet, Victor Robbins, Mrs. Astor maid, Rosalie Bedois, and her nurse, Caroline Louise Endres. Okay, can you tell us about the part where something happened? Okay, so it says after lifeboat 4 was lowered at 1:55 a.m., Astor is said to have stood alone while others tried to free the remaining collapsible boats. He was last seen alive on the starboard bridge wing, smoking a cigarette with Jacques Futrelle. And it says what? A mere half an hour later, the ship disappeared beneath the ocean. So, interestingly enough, this Jacob Astor, which was one of the rich people, right, the Astors, happened to be on this Titanic, right? Let's read a bit about this part. It says John Jacob Astor IV was an American business magnate, real estate developer, inventor, writer, lieutenant colonel in the Spanish-American War, and a prominent member of the Astor family. He died in the sinking of the RMS Titanic during the early hours of April 15th, 1912. Astor was the richest passenger aboard the RMS Titanic, and was thought to be among the richest people in the world at that time, with a net worth of roughly $87 million when he died, equivalent to $2.4 billion in 2021. Yeah, which a lot of these numbers are just, quote unquote, chump change now, but yeah, so that there's that, right? There ain't no coincidences there. But anyway, going back to the point that I was making, if America's the Titanic, these nations, what they're doing now is they're seeing, this chick is going down, and they're jumping off. They're out. They jumping onto the lifeboats and they are out, gone. Okay, as it says, they're fleeing. Both leaving the actual land and going back, and in the sense of stopping to deal with this place. So this defunding, this de-dollarization is in hyperdrive, overdrive, whatever you want to call it. So that's the first part. Now the second article, or the second headline, which deals more with Revelation 17, the beast hating the whore, right? So it says PM Orban says U.S. cannot push Hungary. How is this properly pronounced? Hungary. Yep, Hungary. So it says here the US cannot push Hungary into war. Rest of Europe be wise to follow his policy. Constant attacks, at which Hungary is a part of NATO and the EU, right? So it says constant attacks of the Hungarian government from US Democrats do little to differentiate the US from the bullying superpowers it seeks to distance itself from. Because they're seeing the true colors. Remember, this place is being revealed. The skirt is being lifted. And even the allies are like, yo, what's up? It says the relentless criticism by the Biden administration towards the incumbent Hungarian government is entirely disproportionate and unjustified and does little to separate the current U.S. regime from the malign superpowers it seeks to distance itself from. Hungary's leader recognizes this and is putting his own country's interest ahead of those of the United States, a stance that Europe would be wise to follow. And we're going to hear a few things that he says here, but he's pretty much pushing back, saying, look, we're not interested in joining this coalition of support Ukraine here and send this here and send this here just because you want to do it. Our perspective is different. We are actually close to this land where all this stuff is going on. And we need to do what's best for us. So stop trying to pressure us into doing what you want to do, because you don't face the consequences that we do. And once again, it says, despite pressure from the US, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said his country cannot be pushed into joining the war on the sides of Ukraine. And eventually you try to push and push and push, they're going to push back. The United States has not given up its plan to squeeze everyone, including Hungary, into a war alliance to go with the crowd, Orban told a press conference last week. But I have made it clear several times, and Hungarian diplomacy has also expressed this, that the will of the Hungarian people is clear and our knowledge of history is quite solid. So we will not allow this. What does that mean? Because he understands how this turns out, right? This isn't the first time that the events we're seeing now or a similar scenario has played out. So they know how this goes. And they're like, we're not interested in this. We will not allow them to squeeze us into a war. We will not send any weapons, and we will not be involved in a conflict that is not our war, the Hungarian prime minister added. So this is just one example, which he goes on more and more in the article, but this is just one example of the various different scriptures where these allies are they're getting tired of the U.S. They're not seeing a benefit in really being allied with the U.S. They're not being treated like allies, and they're being, coerced into things that are going to be detrimental to them. Look at the position Europe is in. Russia supplying all that energy and so on and so forth to them. They have now tarnished that relationship, blown up the pipelines, and then shut down their nuclear plants. So as winter comes, what are you going to do? Well, next we have, this is from Bloomberg.com. It says Zimbabwe to introduce gold-backed digital currency, Sunday Mail, which, with Zimbabwe's currency has been very destroyed, for a while now. And so they're hoping that this gold-backed digital currency can stabilize that. But this is a very, very interesting step, because they're not the first ones or the only ones to head in that direction, right? Gold-backed digital currency, because if the new form of currency is going to be digital. The world is shifting away from the cash and so on and so forth, and they're moving towards this digital. So they're saying, well, if we can have gold-backed digital currency, then we're good. Because gold is not like the dollar that can be like the US dollar. Let me put it like that. Like the US dollar that can be stretched, that is elastic, that can be manipulated. So it says Zimbabwe will soon introduce a gold-backed digital currency meant to stabilize the local unit from its continued depreciation against the dollar, the U.S. dollar. State-run Sunday Mail reported, citing central bank governor John Mangudia. This will allow those holding small amounts of Zimbabwe dollars to exchange their money for digital tokens to store value and hedge against currency volatility, the report said, which I believe that their currency is actually called the Zimbabwean dollar, which was a change from what the Rhodesian dollar. So the term dollar is not pegged to the U.S. You know, you have other countries or other currencies, which maybe they don't use it now, but in past times you had different dollars, like Australian dollar, Zimbabwean dollar, U.S. dollar. So it says the tokens will help ensure that those with low amounts of currency can buy the gold units, so that we leave no one and no place behind, Mangudia told the Sunday Mail. And I also pulled up some information about the Zimbabwean dollar, so that, just to give a bit of context as to what was happening to their actual currency over there in Zimbabwe. So it says the Zimbabwean dollar, this is the sign, right? You'll see that Z and the dollar sign, to distinguish it from other dollar-denominated currencies, was the name of 4 official currencies of Zimbabwe from 1980 to 12 April 2009. During this time, it was subject to periods of extreme inflation, followed by a period of hyperinflation. And that was just that was game over at that point. It says the Zimbabwean dollar was introduced in 1980 to directly replace the Rhodesian dollar, which had been introduced in 1970 at par 1-to-1 at a similar value to the U.S. dollar. In the 20th century, the dollar functioned as a normal currency, but in the early 21st century, hyperinflation in Zimbabwe reduced the Zimbabwean dollar to one of the lowest valued currency units in the world, and that's what's going to happen to this U.S. dollar. And that's why they're trying to reset that by way of a digital currency. They're going to introduce a digital currency. The U.S. is going to introduce a digital currency, and when I say introduce, I mean officially manufacture it, and go and get along and join it. Because right now, they're talking about it and they're doing this, but they're going to do it. Okay, they're going to do it, and they're going to do it fast, because the more they wait, the more pressure comes on to actually shift towards this thing. And that way they can say, hey, we don't have enough time. We got to do this quick, right? We don't have 2-3 years let's explore this a bit more. Look at what's happening with all the other countries, and look at what's happening with the paper dollar. This thing is crashing. We need to switch ASAP. So it says here, it was redenominated 3 times in 2006, 2008, 2009, with denominations up to 100 trillion banknotes issued. The final redenomination produced the 4th dollar, the ZWL, which was worth 10 yada yada. Boom. So that was what's happening with Zimbabwe. And now they're hoping that the introduction of this gold-backed digital currency, the central bank gold-backed digital currency, is going to stabilize that. Okay, but once again, it's that step in that direction. And they're not going to be the only ones. Let's see. So now, and the last part I had was this tweet from Gold Telegraph. So it says the Zimbabwe government would like to join BRICS. Wow. Who's next? The country will soon introduce a gold-backed digital currency to stabilize its local currency, which we just read about. Countries in BRICS or looking to join are stockpiling gold. The dots are starting to connect for all to see. So once again, those who are actually watching, who have the ability to see what's really going on, and they're not blinded by all the other distracting things that this place offers via bread and circuses. Those who are actually paying attention see that this thing is moving. Moves are being made on a world scale. and it's gonna come back, and I mean, shit, it's gonna be like a boomerang coming back with super speed, and it's going to rock this place. You rock my world. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen to this place. America's world is gonna get rocked. All right, that's what's coming. So, I mean, hey, we are the watchmen, right? Isaiah 62:6. We are the watchmen. That's it. Let me read some of these. Okay, but we are the watchmen, and we're watching, and we're telling you this is what's getting ready to happen. This is what is actually happening. Well, whether you hear or forbear, that's on you. But we're doing our job. Yep, let's bring this out. This is Yawanathan Bakwar 144K. Revelation 18:8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day. Whose plagues? Babylon. Death and mourning and famine. And when you read in the scriptures, I mentioned this before, but if you pay attention, there's a lot of cases when it talks about judgment to come that mention death and famine together. I mean, famine is like emphasized in a lot of different chapters that deal with the judgments to come. Okay, earthquakes, pestilence, famines, death, mourning, famines, cannibalism, famines, famine. So the Lord is definitely going to have that famine play a very, very big role in wiping out a lot of people. A lot of people are not going to survive the famine that's coming. They will commit cannibalism, but they still will not survive. It says, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord who judgeth her. So Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going what? He's going to destroy this place. Okay. Yep. Let's see what else we got. Isaiah 13:6. How ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as what? A destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. Yeah, and the kind of judgment that's going to be unleashed upon this place is going to be unlike any other. And the people that are supposed to be the most concerned are walking about like everything is all sweet, worried about the wrong things. Even Israelites who know they're Israelites, people that call themselves prophets and teachers, and yet you barely ever see any video, any content about what's actually happening in the world today. And you're wondering, are you guys paying attention, or what kind of watchmen are you? You know, you like, yo, what's up? Like, where's the content of the actual watchmen, of warning about what's actually happening in the world? Prophecies, you know, of the things that are coming. Where's that at? So guess what? You're gonna have even people that call themselves Israelites that all they care about is the social aspect of things and the drama. Well, guess what? When that judgment comes, they are gonna get caught off guard. They're gonna get caught in that besom of destruction. So you better open up your eyes and stay wide awake, because the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is working. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem Rachah Kodash. Until next time, Shalom.